Hey, this is Brooks with Character Design Forge. Do you ever look around a room and say, first, I need to clean this place up, and second, I want to rearrange all the furniture because I'm so dissatisfied with the way that things are, and things just need to get shaken up for the better? That's kind of the default state that I'm in with my own personal art most of the time. I'm just like, dissatisfied, fix it. The difference in the last few weeks is I've actually been able to do something about it. So I've updated the key art, I guess you'd call it, the main illustrations that show off a few of my own personal characters. And as recently as a few weeks ago for my character arc video, I was showing you this illustration of my character Koji, which is at least a year old, and most of these illustrations were a year old. So I've made some new stuff that is more at the level where I'm at right now, and one of the things I like to do is share sort of my own personal growth and journey with you guys. So here's the time lapse of that stuff, and I'll talk about what I did differently and better and why I'm so happy about how these turned out. So starting off, a few of these are actually lacking the sketch process within the time-lapse video, and that's just kind of a casualty of my file management within Procreate. I am using Procreate in order to make each of these, and you'll see a kind of little blobby version of the Koji character next to him there, and that's because at one point I sat down and just really tried to map out the color palettes for each of the characters that you're going to see here. And so that I use as a little bit of a reference to flat in the colors on the character, try to make sure there's enough segmentation within him, that some overlapping elements of him still stay defined. Also here I am creating a darker version of that flat color layer and saturating a little bit, shifting it a little bit in hue toward a red, and then using a chalky brush to cut away and define some of the light and shadow and forms of the character. And so that is the new Koji. Next up here is a character named Jacqueline from the game Shackleton that I'm developing with my friend and Character Select co-host Mark. So Jacqueline here, I do actually have a full 3D model built for use within our game, which we're hoping to show you a little bit of soon. But I wanted to create another illustrated version of the character. The one that I have currently is just kind of flat rendered. And there is a danger here, which I was trying to avoid, when you're adding a lot of detail, at least color information, and trying to render out a character that's as cartoony as Jacqueline is, there's a danger that you can kind of make it a little too stiff, and I wanted to retain the sort of bouncy lightheartedness that the character has without getting rid of it with the added level of detail, a little bit more realistic level of detail with this rendering. So hopefully I struck the right balance there. I was pretty happy with that. The next character here is Parcel, who you've seen me change a lot over the last year with a few different videos. And the reason for that basically stems from the fact that the character started out as just kind of a mascot for a fake delivery company. And as I drew the character, I realized there was this story that I wanted to tell with the character, and with that came a level of added detail, because the more you need the character to do, the more posing and expressing, the more viable they need to be able to do that. In this case, that involved adding some detail and just kind of complicating the wardrobe a little bit more, as there is a bit of a story reason for that. For most of these illustrations, I was using some reference photos, and for that I just set up a tripod and set the self-timer on my camera and took a few photos of myself kind of striking the pose that I was hoping to get out of the character. There is a big misconception when it comes to reference photos. A lot of people kind of think that it's either cheating or an easy way out, but I would highly recommend that you use reference photos. It's what a lot of artists are using, either to get things like expressions or poses out of their characters, or things like the way that materials are, or the way that light hits things. A lot of artists, all good artists, use reference photos, and you really should be if you aren't already. Once again here I'm using a darker version of the color flats and then cutting away with a chalk brush to define the forms and how the light is hitting those things. Afterwards I'll use some softer brushes for highlights and some overall shadows and contrast, but I really recommend that you do the work of defining the forms however you go about doing that before you add little bits of soft shadow and highlight, only because it tends to look either muddy or just kind of underdeveloped at that point when you do that. This next piece is the one that I'm really the most excited about because it's not just a new illustration, but an updated version of the character design, a few tweaks within the design that I'm really happy with. I ended up running the character by one of my mentors just because the shapes of the head and the overall structure and flow of the character was either too complicated or just a little janky in a few areas, especially the head I was involving too many shapes and too many segments together. But I'm really happy with how he's turned out now. The arms, especially the proportion and shape of those, have really just helped the character click. This character is a bit more monochromatic than the others that I have, but even within those ranges of purple, I still try to strike a good balance so that there's some segmentation with the belly, the underside of the arms there, and a little bit of a kind of magenta flow into the ends of his arms and legs there. What I like to do with color palettes is pull at least 80% of what's going to be on the character from one end of the color spectrum, and then maybe something complementary or kind of opposite. So those purples are opposite from yellows there, and just a little bit of that yellow, maybe 20-30% in opposite color there. And you just want to make sure that you're never oversaturating your characters too much or oversaturating your colors, because that can tend to look garish. And so there's the final lineup of these illustrations. Again, really happy with how they've turned out. I feel like it's just a good update to kind of where my artistic voice and what I'd like to be saying is at, and where my skills are at with them as well, and a bit more expression out of each of these characters too, which I'm happy with. That's it for me today. I'm making new videos every week at Character Design Forge. Subscribing on YouTube lets you know when new videos are made available. If you'd like to follow me on Instagram, it's @BagelVenison, and that's where I post things like this, and also a project I've been doing recently that's sort of an illustrated creature and photograph hybrid project. My course Learn Character Design is a comprehensive character design curriculum. It's over 10 hours of video learning. You can learn more if you head over to learncharacterdesign.com. And if you'd like to support me, this channel, and the stuff that I'm making, you can head over to patreon.com/BagelDenizen. In return for supporting, you get things like early access to our show Character Select, episodes a week early. You can get high-res downloads of files like these illustrations, and lesson booster packs, which are like tangible, downloadable versions, kind of highlighting and going through the high points of some of the videos that I'm making. Thank you for watching, and have fun creating.